Good afternoon. I am Vernita Howard. I am the founder of S.W.A.T. We're coming to you tonight with Miss Sheila Shoemaker, who is going to help bring awareness to domestic violence. This is our very first. Um, this is our very first for 2022. You have to excuse my voice, but I'm really excited. I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne. Dwayne will introduce himself, and then Miss Sheila will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm C. Dwayne Hennett, author, advocate for domestic violence, chairperson for SWAT, and happy to be here.
And I'm Sheila Shoemaker, and I'm an advocate and a big fan of SWAT and love speaking out against domestic violence. And I want to spread awareness on how you can avoid domestic violence and life after domestic violence.
Thank you, Miss Sheila, for taking time out tonight to come on and help spread awareness.
Absolutely.
I enjoy working with you a lot. Sheila and I will work very close together a lot. Um, Advocating all over, um, all over for domestic violence. So tonight, we're going to talk about, as she stated, domestic violence, the effects it have on you. But we're also going to talk about life after domestic violence. So, with that being said, Sheila, can you explain to us what domestic violence is?
Domestic violence, I mean, people think it's just when there's physical violence in a relationship, and that's not necessarily, I mean, that's not the case. Domestic violence it comes in several forms. There's the physical abuse, of course. There's also financial abuse. There's mental abuse. There's control. I mean, domestic violence comes in several different forms. And a lot of times it doesn't start off with physical abuse. It becomes isolation and control and financial abuse. To me personally, the physical abuse, my bruises and my broken bones, they healed a lot faster than the mental damage and the physical, or I'm sorry, the mental parts of the domestic violence. That took a lot longer to heal from it. And the financial abuse, after domestic violence, a lot of women are left penniless. Their credit's ruined. There's a lot of different aspects of domestic violence that people don't consider. They think it's just the physical aspects of it, and that's not the case. There's several different areas of domestic violence that exist.
And I know you said that women, and I'm glad Dwayne is on as well. He didn't know he was going to be interviewed too, but um, you stated that, a lot of times the women leave and their credit is messed up and different things. But Dwayne, you know about financial abuse. And it's good to hear sometimes from a male because a lot of times men won't speak up and speak out. So why do you take time out to advocate, not just on the physical abuse, but also advocate on, all forms of abuse?
Because people like to get stuck on just that, just the physical abuse part of it. And then the physical abuse becomes an emotional attachment to someone just viewing it on the outside. Well, if you don't have the physical abuse, then are you really in a domestic violence situation? And he ever hit you? There's no signs of him being hit. They focus on that. They focus on seeing bruises and scars, and they'll diminish the victims or the survivors, viewpoint of what domestic violence is, or their experiences, to just seeing bruises or cuts or black eyes and stuff like that. When there's really more to that. There's a lot more to domestic violence or domestic abuse. I say it's like an onion, and it has many layers, or it's always evolving. what domestic violence was when I first started advocating 11 years is definitely not the same domestic violence that it is to now today in 2022. So that's one of the reasons why I do it, and the fact that I want to educate everybody about domestic violence, because I don't want anyone to go through domestic violence, because it can be a horrible situation. It can be a horrible thing to go through. Um, to have a family member go through it is even worse. I mean, you sitting there and you viewing your family member, or your friends, or God forbid, a child of yours going through it. Um, so my I advocate for that, for education, just to bring awareness and to stop it.
Absolutely.
So why do men not want to speak out when it's on domestic violence?
Because we're men. Simple and plain. We're men. We're told not to cry. We're told not to, suck it up. Be men about it. I mean, and besides, there's no outlet for us to go to. I mean, it's hard to find another man that's been through domestic violence, or gone through, financial abuse of domestic violence. The outlets aren't there for men as much as the women counterparts. And then too, you you get looked upon different. So there's a certain stigma surrounding it if you're a man that's going through domestic violence or domestic abuse or any parts of domestic violence. So it's it's looked upon differently. So and you kind of get shamed a little bit too, if you do speak out or if you do talk about it, because we're not supposed to talk about it, or we're raised not to show emotion for situations like that.
And you know what, too, also, I mean, just recently I had a phone call, um, and correct me if you think I'm wrong. A lot of times, if the woman is the aggressor, and I mean, I know for myself, I mean, I didn't just, when I was being beat on, I didn't just lay there. I mean, I protected myself, or I attempted to. I mean, I didn't just lay there and say, thank you, can I have another? I mean, I tried to, attempted to get the aggressor off of me, and sometimes I fought back. I mean, who doesn't? But in the male situation, if he's got a female attacking him, if he pushes the female off of him or tries to get her away from him, at that point, when he does that, if the police get there and she says, oh, well, he pushed me, he gets arrested. Even though she was the aggressor, the police a lot of times look at that man and go, well, he's bigger, he's stronger. And even though she was the aggressor, he's now put his hands on her. So he gets arrested, when really all he was doing was defending himself. And I mean, so it's a two, it's a whole, the whole coin is flipped. Whereas if, when the police got there, when I was being beat on, and I said, well, okay, I did defend myself, I did this to ward off an attack, they didn't even look at me and even say, okay, well, you did that to defend yourself. Absolutely. They didn't even look to take me to jail at all. But the male, yes, off to jail he goes. So I've had several conversations like that with men in the last few weeks, and that's unfortunate.
That's a good point. It goes back to, I'm sorry, Vanita. I was just
Go ahead, Dwayne.
that's a very good point. It goes back to the educating the community. When
Mm-hmm.
it comes to domestic violence, a lot of civil servants or people who are involved in it don't know how to look for domestic violence, how to look for certain signs of it, and who
Yep.
the aggressor is and who the aggressor isn't. Um, and that's, as advocates, that's what we strive to do, is educate everybody, so everybody is equal footing. I mean, men go through domestic violence not just as much, but men go through domestic violence too.
Yes.
Um, so, and that's one of the, like I said, that's a stigma that's associated with it. That
Mm-hmm.
men that are abused, they're not afraid of the person that's abusing them. They're afraid of them manipulating the public or the community into believing that they are the abusers or they are the aggressor, and
Yes.
them being sent to jail and them losing out on everything. They have a lot. They have a lot to lose. The ones who are afraid. The ones who are afraid. It's a lot. You think
Yeah.
about it. You lose. Freedom. You lose. You may lose if you have kids. You may lose your rights to kids. You may lose your employment.
Yep.
So, for the guy that's standing on the other side who's being abused, or in an abusive relationship, or what I say a toxic relationship, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot that swirls around in your head when you think about calling the police or having the police called on. So that's why you don't hear a lot of men, talk about it, or discuss it, because, like I said, nobody wants their freedom taken away from them on a lie.
Correct.
That is so true, and we've seen it. Um, both, on both hands. And
Mhm.
that's what I love about SWAT, not just because I'm the founder, but when we advocate, um, there's a no judgment zone. So we make it where men can feel comfortable as well to come and talk. And the cool thing is having Dwayne as part of the team, he's able to talk to them to let them know there's no judgment zone. We're here to support, and that's what it's all about. Um, I always believe in educating the head. It never fails, guys. Sorry, it's my phone. But I always believe in educating the head, because if you educate the head, it'll trickle down.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of times, I hear Dwayne say, men don't want to come forward because it make them seem weak. But somewhere, and I'm saying that somewhere, men gotta stop worrying about their ego so much and get the help they need as well. Because domestic violence, leaves a toll on you mentally, psychologically. And I want to say to any male that's watching, don't suffer. Um, we say that there's nowhere for males to go, but there is now, because SWAT is here and we take care of people all over. Um, we say North Carolina, but everybody knows if they ever encounter SWAT gonna take care of people. Um, and I'm passionate. I'm really passionate about the people. I'm passionate about domestic violence. I'm just passionate about helping people all together. And a lot of times Dwayne have to tell me, um, let it go, you know. But I want everybody to understand you have an outlet. We're here. My team know I'll get them up all times of night because it's an issue going on. Because I need to understand the process right then. But that's what SWAT is about. We want to help. And, Sheila knows. Well, I'll get on the phone with her. Hey, I need this. That we got to help. So, but I enjoy bringing survivors on the show because it's one thing to tell someone, this is what you should do. This is how you should do it. But all you done was sit in a class and got an education and never been through anything. Great, ma'am. You got the education, but have you lived through it? Do you have children? Sometimes you have to interview those that are interviewing you
Yeah.
because they might not understand your pain. They might not understand anything that you're going through, but they've sat in this class and got a 2 year or 4 year degree, and now they feel like they could tell you, um, do A, B, C, D. Some of the things that they say may work, but then we know with domestic violence, there's no rules to the game and nobody plays fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just my spiel on it. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right.
Sheila, my next question for you is,
Uh-huh.
um, I know that you're passionate about domestic violence because you're a survivor and you like to educate and bring awareness. Um, And I said all that to say this. Can you tell the viewers, like, can you give them some of your story so they can understand why you're so passionate about what you do?
Yeah. Um, so my ex-husband went to prison. I left. Gosh, I lost count how many times I left and went back. To be completely honest, I'd have to sit down and really think about how many times I left and went back. Um, and people ask me, why did you go back? And I can't give you a solid answer to this day. Another survivor, well, we understand why we went back. And I still can't explain it to you other than I kept thinking I could fix it. I can fix this. And I can tell you right now, you can't. If there's anyone listening, you can't fix it. You can't fix him. The only person you can fix is yourself. And the only person you can save is yourself. Um, so I kept going back, and it ended up ending very badly for me, almost cost me my life. So I relocated after he was sentenced to prison. And at that time, as most survivors, we're kind of quiet and we don't want to reach out and we're kind of ashamed. And by that time, we're so isolated, we really don't have anybody to reach out to. And I didn't know to reach out to, like, say, S.W.A.T or another organization. So I relocated with the help of my church in North Carolina and a few friends and my daughter and another young lady. And I hope she's watching. If she is, hey, Kenzie, I love you. And we relocated from North Carolina to Indiana. We rented a car and we started over living in a hotel. And it was a hard way to go. And then I realized that there were other women out there like me. And I realized they struggled like we did, starting over, like myself and Kenzie. And I realized you didn't have to. And that there were organizations out there like S.W.A.T. And there were other women out there. And I thought, you know what? I don't want another woman or another man to try and do that alone when you don't have to. So I started talking about my story and I started telling my story and I started telling other survivors, you don't have to do this by yourself. And anytime I can help them, I do. Because it's a struggle to do it alone. It really is. It's hard. And you don't have to. There were many nights that, I cried myself to sleep because I felt like I was completely alone in that battle by myself. And you're not. I felt like no one would understand, what I was feeling, what I was going through. And a lot of people don't. I mean, this is something that only certain people are going to understand what's going through your head and the emotions and the feelings that you're going through and the struggles that you're feeling. And you know who's going to understand that? Another survivor. And those are the people you need to surround yourself with. That's your best cheerleaders. That's your army. That's the army that you need to surround yourself with. And I don't ever want anyone to have to go through it alone. And I also don't want anyone to stay in those relationships thinking that they don't have an outlet. They don't have a way to get out. So I talk about it all the time. You'll see me in a gas station talking to a complete stranger about domestic violence. It's plastered on the back of my car. I wear shirts with it on just so I can strike up a conversation. I'm not ashamed of it at all. I did nothing wrong. And I tell everybody about it just in case someone's around and they hear me. And I hand my phone number out to people. I do that because you never know who might be in an earshot and hear it and might go, wait a minute, I'm not in this by myself. And you're not. It's important. So if you're listening and you think that you should be ashamed, don't be. Talk to someone. If you've made it out, tell your story. It might save a life.
That is so true. I remember when I first told my story, I was ashamed. I didn't want people to know because I felt like people would look down on me.
Mm-hmm.
But I am so glad that you're, able to tell your story to help other people. Um, your story don't stop with you; it begins with you, because you're out doing, what you're destined to do. Um, so I know you said that you can't remember how many times you left, but when you would leave him, did he ever find you?
Oh,
Did you reach back out to him?
oh
Like,
yeah.
what happened?
Oh, I mean, sometimes he would reach out to me. Other times it was me reaching out to him because you have this, they call it trauma bond. Um, I kept, if he didn't reach out to me, I was, my mind in my head, I was going, why? Why isn't he begging me back? Um, and if I had enough strength to stay away from him and I wasn't reaching out to him, then he was reeling me back in. It's this toxic relationship that you go through. I mean, it goes both ways. I'm not going to say that every time he was trying to reel me back in. My mind wasn't right. So if I didn't hear from him, I was reaching out to him as well. I mean, so if if you're listening and you're going through this right now, that's normal. And you have to fight that urge. That's why you need to get with another survivor sister and stay on the phone with them and use them as your support network. Because although it may sound crazy to your friends or your family, because they don't understand how your mind's working, I know that that's what I did. So if you were to call me up and go, Sheila, right now I really want to call him, and I'm going to say, oh, I know you do. And I understand that's what you want to do. I'm going to talk you through it. I'm going to stay on the phone with you all night so you don't call him, because I've done it. We've all done that. I mean, Vernetta, I know you did it too. I know we all have done it. We've called them. We've let them call us. It goes both ways. Why did I do it? I don't know. I mean, looking back, I'm like, why did I do that? Because it was a toxic relationship and my mind was not right while I was with him. And I had to get completely out of it and get my self-esteem back. And I had to start loving myself enough to decide that I was worth more than that relationship and that I deserve someone better than him. And until you get that completely back and you get yourself back, you're going to stay in that cycle with that person. You're just going to keep doing that. And you're going to keep playing it over and over again. You're going to keep going until it ends in something very, very badly.
It's like a never-ending cycle.
Yes, it never stops.
So did you ever get a protection order against them?
When he went to prison, they gave me a protection order. Yes, they gave me a 1 year protection order when he was sentenced to 7 years. Yeah, it's almost laughable. Like, great, you gave me a 1 year protection order, and he was going to be in prison for 7 years. It doesn't even make sense. Yeah.
So after he went to prison, when he came out, did he contact you?
He got out on March 14th, and when I woke up the morning of March 15th, I had 37 messages on Facebook. Yes, yeah, the very day. So I'm assuming he got a cell phone that night. I guess when he got out, the next morning I had 37 messages. Yes.
Okay, and anywhere in his release where um was it stated that he not contact you?
Nope. No.
Did they contact you to let you know that he was getting out?
No. No.
And that's a lot of the issues as well.
Now, none of his messages were threatening. I mean, none of them were threatening. So it wasn't, I mean, he didn't threaten me per se. And I didn't even know you could do this on Facebook Messenger. And some of them, as soon as I read them, disappeared. That's kind of clever. I didn't know that you could do that. So I was able to screenshot some of them. And my husband now and I were just dating then. I did screenshot some of them. The rest of them were literally disappearing as I read them. And I was like, you can do that? I was like, I didn't know Facebook. I didn't know that was an option on I was like, only a cheater would know to do something like that. I was like, I didn't know you could do that. But yes, that's why we need to change the laws. But so I blocked him. But I mean, Facebook, and a lot of people like, well, Sheila, your Facebook's public. It is, yeah, mine's public, and it remained public. So I'm kind of a little bold on in that manner, but it had been a little bit. It had been a while, and I remained bold the entire time. I don't suggest that for everybody,
Right.
but I'm a little brazen. So
And sometimes, especially depending on your abuser, sometimes you have to change your name on social media. You have to protect yourself at all costs.
and I was, I moved states. Um, it probably wasn't a smart move. Um, Probably should have shut down all social media. What I did is not recommended, but I guess I was really kind of hoping that I would hem him up and I could get him sent back to prison. That was really what I was intending to do. That sounds it. It's not smart. I'm not recommending that at all.
Right.
Not smart at all. But I mean, he's no longer in this. He's no longer with us. So
Right. So do you feel like, because today I was on social media, and there was a young lady who tried to get a protection order, and I don't know how to say this so nobody takes this, but I don't do the racial stuff. But I've noticed a lot of time people of color, when try to get protection orders, they're ignored. We see it all the time where they're losing their lives. And I know all nationalities have lost their lives.
yeah.
Um, but like in your case, do you feel, because if you talk to a lot of people who've been through domestic violence, we truly feel like the justice system failed us, right? So do
Yep.
you feel like the justice system failed you, or you feel like you got justice?
Oh, I feel like the justice system fails domestic violence victims and survivors at every turn. And I was going to say it because you know how I feel about this. And I feel like they truly fail. I feel like with all the survivors and victims that I speak with on a regular basis, I feel like that if you are a woman or a man of color, that you are failed even further. The stories that I hear, I'm absolutely appalled. And you know that I've called you and I've cried over some of the ones that I've heard, and I've been absolutely blown away at the things that I've been told, and not just told, I've verified them to be true. And I'm utterly angry when I hear it. I'm like, there is no way at some of the things that have happened and that our police or judges have allowed to happen in the United States. And it's bad enough that when I called for help, I've had an officer stand on my front porch and had him look at me and say, well, I'm sorry, I didn't see him do anything to you. And my response to him was, well, I didn't black my eye and blood, and bloody my nose and my forehead swelled out like this. I didn't do this to myself. And him leave me there and say, well, I don't want you to expect me to do. That's bad. But the things that I've heard and seen, and the things that I've seen go through a court system and it be because, and I can't say, there's no other way to say it, I'm just going to say it, I feel like because the woman is of color and it goes through a court system and somebody walk out of that courtroom with absolutely nothing done to them, or it be a slap on the wrist, or them walk out with a bond. There was just a case in Detroit where a man set fire to a pregnant woman, and he's got a $50,000 bond. Everybody in the United States should be furious. The man has a $50,000 bond for setting fire to a pregnant woman. Are you, what? What? He should have no bond. Zero. Can you please take a guess what her ethnicity is? Take one guess. Take a guess. She was pregnant with twins, or is pregnant with twins, and he set her on fire. And this man has a long criminal history. What judge in his right mind would give that man a $50,000 bond? Everybody should be up in arms. But you're not hearing about it. You know why? Why? You tell me why. And I'm angry. Everybody should be angry. Sorry, you know how I get, Vernetta. It makes me mad.
Right.
Sorry, soapbox. Soapbox.
I truly understand. It's hard.
When people say that it's not like that, they need to start reading articles about domestic violence victims.
They need to just type in their local news or their local newspaper and just type in domestic abuse. You see
like
so much every single day. Every day. And I want to say to any young woman, any young male, older, young, however, if that person, if the signs are there, believe them. Don't underestimate them at all. If it's verbal, it will definitely lead to physical eventually.
Yes. If you're in your community and your judges and your prosecutors are not holding these men or women accountable, do something about it, because it could be your daughter, it could be your mother next, and we need to start making them hold them accountable. You've got to start getting angry. It's your community. This guy's going to get out. They're going to get out and walk the streets in your community. These people are violent. I mean, they can control themselves because they don't do it in Walmart. They don't do it in public streets 9 times out of 10. So they can control themselves. I mean, they can. Everybody usually thinks they're a nice guy. So they can control themselves. They're very charming. Most people think they're a nice guy. They're decent people. They're very narcissistic. You should care if this person is out wandering around in your neighborhoods, at your church, at your schools. So pay attention to whether or not your prosecutors and your judges are letting these guys off easy, because next it could be your daughter that's the victim, or it could be your niece, it could be your mother. Start paying attention to what these courts are doing with these gentlemen or these women that are like this. It matters in your community, in your neighborhood. Pay attention. Just because it's not your family member that's the victim this time, it matters. They're monsters. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it what it is. They're monsters.
It's the plight of the advocate, of us educating the community and letting people know, domestic violence just doesn't stop when the abuse stops, or it doesn't start, or it doesn't start when the physical abuse starts. So many layers and so many places before that actually happens. For prosecutors and judges and people, that's supposed to help the community and supposed to, defend the community out there. They're not educated enough to know that, stalking happens. And it could be, just it's not your common stalking where someone's following you around the house. It could be Facebook stalking. It could be, calling somebody on the phone, texting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain amount of a text message that you can do, which will be considered harassment.
Yeah.
So, these things are here and are here supposed to protect the community and supposed to protect everybody else, but they just don't put it all together. They don't put it all together that, you know, if you lock a person up, you may give them 6 months or a year. They're out in the street again. Like I tell somebody, they're sitting in their jail cell stewing about that you had them locked up, and it's your fault that you had them locked up. Not
Mm-hmm.
they don't take accountability that their action actually caused them to be in jail. Your action were the ones that made them go to jail. You caused me to go. You did this to me, and it's all about self for them. That's why. That's why when I say that we need to educate, there's so much about domestic violence. I mean, you talked about a toxic relationship. Toxic relationship, can be with abuse or can be without abuse. It doesn't just have to be the physical abuse. It could be the
Mm-hmm.
manipulation. It could be the isolation and stuff like that. So when we talk about domestic violence, we're just not talking about the physical. We're just not talking about once the physical stops or once the abuse stops. We're talking about all of it, encompassing all of it together. So when we put laws together, when we put people in place to make laws or to uh, enact laws, they should be educated and versed on this. They should be educated and versed on all of this because it's not just one simple thing. It's a lot. It's a whole lot that goes into domestic violence and domestic abuse. And I think that whenever we put lawmakers in positions or people who judge laws, that we should consider what their thoughts are, because you may be electing an abuser themselves.
Yep.
People don't realize that somebody that's wearing a robe or somebody that's wearing a police uniform could be an abuser themselves, and that's the reason why they're not taking into consideration what's going on with you. Those things need to be asked whenever you hire or whenever you put people in place as far as that. What's your views on domestic violence? Because what your views are on domestic violence will go a long way to how you look at someone else's situation.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about, so Sheila, I noticed that you stated that your abuser is no longer with us. Can you elaborate?
He passed away um, November 23rd um, of a drug overdose. And I don't want to say ironically. Well, yeah, ironically, uh, about a week before that, he had sent me a message on Facebook. Um, I sat on that message for about a week. And of course, he was a changed man, clean and sober, had a good job, great house. His marriage was going great, he said, because he had gotten remarried. It was this big, long thing about, how he was born again Christian. And then another paragraph that said, by the way, I looked at all your photos on Facebook and you're not aging well. And are you sick or something? Okay, well, I mean, if you went through my entire Facebook, then, obviously, that, I had aneurysm surgery this year. That was my first thought. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I sat on it for a couple of days and I did respond. And I can't say the words I said, but because I did, you know me. I did respond and I kind of let loose a little bit. And normally I would block it. And this time I decided I wasn't going to and said, you know what, I'm not going to block you this time. You want to look. As a matter of fact, knock yourself out because I'm fabulous. If you want to look, it's great. And a couple other exploits. And a week later, he died of a drug overdose. And I'm not going to lie. I laughed. That makes me a horrible person. I did at first. I laughed, and I mean, I laughed. I called you. That it sounds horrible. I did laugh. And I said, I guess I don't look so bad now. I look better than he does. I made some jokes. That makes me sound horrible. And then I realized that it's probably not the best reaction. And when I got over that, I actually I felt bad for him. I loved his children. I love his children. Um, and I really felt bad for him, period, that he never um, had enough respect for himself or got himself together enough to get clean and sober and get his life together. I know that he did not have the best childhood. And so I really did feel bad um, that he never got completely clean and sober um, and got himself together. Because even though the things that he did to me were horrible, um, I still believe that everybody deserves mercy. Um, and everybody has to answer for the things that they do. And he doesn't have to answer to me. He's got somebody else he has to answer to for that. So after I sat and thought about my initial reaction, I had to, that's something that I had to ask for forgiveness for. But I do feel bad that he never really, that he didn't get any help. I feel bad for that. I feel bad that he never went and got himself straight. Um, I'm not going to make any excuses for the things that he did to me. Absolutely, I'm not going to. Do I forgive him for it? I had to. I did that a long time ago. Um, I didn't forgive him for him. I forgave him for myself. Um, and forgiveness is, I mean, you got to let all that stuff go. It'll just eat you alive.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
that's and that's the thing. Forgiveness is for you
yeah,
because if he wanted forgiveness, he would have asked you for forgiveness. And a lot of times we're holding things and they don't care.
yeah,
So it burdens you down to a point where, it's like a heavy burden. But when you're able to forgive, it's like, oh, so much is lifted off of you.
yeah.
Joy.
That's also too part of the manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
also too part of the manipulation. If he wouldn't have died, God forbid that he, I mean, I, I feel bad that he did die from a standpoint of his kids, but
Mm-hmm.
manipulation was set into place long ago. Um, these things, let me see, these things take place and happen because he wants the person that he abused to feel bad for himself. He wants you to be remorseful for what's going on in his life, like you
Right.
caused it, or like you could change it in some way. And that's all a part. Like I said, that's all part of the manipulation part of it. That text message, the email, the phone calls, those are all part of manipulation to get you to come back, or just for the fact that he just wants to continue that part of it. And that's why I say that domestic violence is just more than just that, because people just don't realize that the manipulation starts so long before in the relationship, at the very beginning. That once you're out of the situation, you have full eyes and full knowledge of what actually went on. And sometimes some people don't even have that. They don't realize that they've been abused. Excuse me, that they've been in a toxic relationship, and the manipulation is ongoing. It's ongoing to the fact that they start to use other people around you when they can't get you to come back on just on something like that, something that hey, I've changed. Saying that you
Mm-hmm.
change is a manipulation, because change is a action, not words.
Mm-hmm.
For you to say
Yep.
that you change, I want to see change. I don't want to hear it, especially if you've done those things to me. I don't want to hear that
Mm-hmm.
you said that you change. I want to see change. Now, honestly and truly, if I was in your situation, I don't care that you did change. I don't care. Don't message me. I mean, I that's my
Yeah.
personal feelings aside. I
Yeah.
always tell people, don't engage. I say don't engage because as you being in that type of relationship, it's easy for you to fall back into it.
Yeah.
It's easy for you to fall back into it. And like I said, it's a game to the person that's abusing you and manipulating you. It's a game to them. It's all about, let me see what I can stir up in this person today. So I feel bad that he lost his life. I do. I truly
Yeah.
I feel bad for loss of any life, especially when it's young or especially when it's unexpected. But I can't feel bad for the fact that he abused somebody else and he didn't have to. I can't feel bad for that he put you through the situation that you went through. I can't feel bad for the fact that he took you through so many things and the only way that you got free was his demise. And still that's still not even a total freedom from it, because you think back and you look, the scars have healed. Some of them have, some of them, haven't, but you're still not totally free. And that's what we need to put out there into to the world, so everybody knows that once this happens, you're still not free from this person. You're still not free from this situation totally. You can be personally healed and personally set free on your own.
Yeah.
But it's like you've been taken through it, and it's like, the healing process is a lot longer than the actual relationship that you have with this person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there can't absolutely with 100% certainty, but, I'm diagnosed with CTE, which is what boxers get diagnosed with. That is 100% because of him. Of a brain aneurysm, intracranial brain aneurysm. Almost certain it's because of repeated head trauma. I had a quilling and a stent put in May. It failed. So now I'm going to have cranial surgery to correct a brain aneurysm. And so, I'm going to have ongoing issues because of the things that he did. There's long-term repercussions for me because of the things that he did. So, and that happens with a lot of, I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So people don't understand, once you get out of that relationship, it doesn't all of a sudden, boom, everything's not perfect. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
A lot of victims or survivors have long-term health issues. So post-traumatic stress disorder, just, to clarify for people watching, it's not a mental illness. That is trauma. It's brain trauma. So it's, people they're like, well, if you just smile more. Oh boy, I wish it was that easy.
Right.
I wish it was that easy. People are like, just get over it. Wow. If it were that easy, boy, I would do it. It's not that easy. It really, literally is. It's a injury to your brain from trauma. So it's just not that easy to get over with. And a lot of survivors have long-term health issues from domestic violence. So once you get out and you move on with your life, and it's just still, you have long-term health issues, and you have long-term ongoing issues caused from domestic violence. So the sooner you get out, the better off you're going to be, even years down the road. It's not just boom, you get out and everything's just peachy. It doesn't work that way.
So let me ask this question, because we talked about all the trauma, different things like that. Um, after a person, after a domestic violence relationship, can a person truly find happiness?
Oh, yes.
And I want to hear from both you and Dwayne.
Oh, absolutely. But you have to be very careful. And you have to, first of all, you have to get yourself together first and really heal yourself, because hurt people hurt people. You don't want to get back into a relationship until you really heal yourself and love yourself again. And that means you got to take some time and get right with yourself first, and be very cautious. A very, very smart person one time told me, write down everything that you want in a man or in a partner, and leave out the looks, and money, what you want in a person, like the characters, the qualities that you want. So I wrote down all these things that I wanted. And I wrote down all these items, and then she said to me, "Okay, pick one that you could give up." So I sat and I looked at this list, and I'm thinking about which one I could give up. And I'm looking really hard. And I was like, "Okay, this one." She goes, "The answer is none of them. Don't give up anything on that list." And I was like, "Wow, she's right. Zero." So if those are all the things that I really wanted in someone, don't be willing to give up anything that you want in someone that you want to, when you're dating someone. And I literally had a list, and I wrote it in a little book, and I kept that list. And as I started to date again, when I would look at that list, if I noticed that they didn't have one of those qualities, I was like, that's it. If I noticed that they seem a little jealous or insecure, I immediately cut them out. I watched for the red flags. And then I met my now husband. And I didn't rush into things. I took things very slow. And I was upfront with him about my prior relationship. And he was very patient, and he was very kind, and he was very loving. And today is actually our second wedding anniversary. And he has never, and we've been together 6 years, he has never raised his voice to me, ever. He's never raised his voice. He has never called me out of my name, ever. Um, and that is my rule. And I told him from the get-go, if you ever call me out of my name or you ever raise your voice to me in anger, then I will leave. And I mean that. I've got boundaries. And I was upfront with him. And there are, I've explained everything to him and let him know that, yes, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. There are going to be times where I might retreat a little bit. So yeah, if you just honest, open communication, and that person where you've been, and be honest with them, and make that list, and don't settle, and don't put yourself on that discount rack, because you're worth it. Go after exactly what you want, and don't settle for anything less. I mean, if you want your daughter or your son to have that perfect person for them, want that for yourself as well. And it's better to be by yourself than not have you want. Why? Why not have what you want? They're out there. You just have to be selective.
Exactly.
I want.
Dwayne.
Um, I'm gonna preface it by telling a little bit of my story. A little bit of my story is I've been married 4 times. I've been married 4 times to 4 different women who were abused previously in their relationships, and I was a person who didn't know what was going on because I had no um, experience with domestic violence. I was raised in a 2-parent family home, never saw domestic violence. I had 3 sisters, 2 of which were married long term. I never saw any domestic violence in their relationship. So I came in as a novice. I didn't know exactly what it was, what I was looking at, and how someone reacted to it. As far as that, I was bonding with their experience of being in a domestic violence relationship. I was bonding with them. And feeling what they were feeling because I'm empathetic as far as that. And for people who don't know, a lot of victims and survivors are empaths anyway. But that's what kind of attracts domestic violence abusers to them because they are empathic. Um, so I was bonding with that part of it, but it was just the fact that it was like every person that I talked to, every person that I was trying to get in a relationship with, had been through some part of domestic violence. That just shows everybody how common and how common domestic violence really is. Just because you don't hear it or somebody doesn't talk about it, when you dig down and you talk to somebody and really find out what their life is or what their relationship is, you may find some semblance of domestic violence or generational curse that may have caused domestic violence. So with that out of the way, so I say this is that when I was in those relationships, I didn't know how to necessarily to to talk to them or give them some kind of reassurances because, like I said, I had no experience with it. Um, Someone told me that being with someone that you think is a good person, that you think may be a good mate, feels like you're waiting for the shoe to fall off. You're waiting for the next shoe to fall off because those same feelings are familiar to an abused person because that's what an abuser does in the beginning. It's all peaches and creams and strawberries and rainbows in the beginning until the abuse starts, or the mental abuse starts, or the physical abuse starts, or the financial abuse starts. It's all perfect, but that's a cycle too because that cycle will repeat itself when he or she tries to come back or apologize. Oh, I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for that. So you feel like those things are familiar to you. You feel like you've seen them before. So, like I said, that part of my education I didn't know. The part of my education that I didn't know, as some things may seem like you're jealous. Me trying to find out where you are, or me being concerned about your whereabouts is not me being jealous. It is me, for me, is me being a concerned, mate. But to someone that's been in a domestic violence relationship, they may feel like you're an abusive person trying to control their comings and goings. So, like I said, the education as far as me was important. Um, as I got through, my marriages that I had been through, so many of them, you know, I had to change my thought process on how I interacted with other people that I wanted to be in a relationship with, and that changed on how I pick people. That changed on how I dated, because that does go into effect. That
Mhm.
plays a part for it. Whenever you're picking somebody that you want to date, you have to be, you have to know somewhat of their history. If they've been in a domestic violence relationship, you have to kind of be easy or kind of, change how you normally would talk or how you normally would. There was a lot of things I had to release, in order for me to be an understanding person as far as choosing someone or dating someone. So it goes into of course you can find love, of course you can find happiness, outside of a domestic violence relationship, but it takes a part on both people, the person that you're dating and you being the dater. Because if you're not healed, there's no point of you even dating because you never know who you are, outside of that domestic violence relationship, because you've been manipulated so much and changed so much to fit that narrative of that abuser that you may not even know who you are once you're outside of it. So it takes time. There's a healing process that has to happen, and there's a time process. Both of those are not exclusive. You can have time and not be healed. You can go 3 years without dating somebody and still not be healed because you haven't started your healing process yet. So both of those things need to happen. It needs to be a time wise, and there needs to be a healing process. For in order for you to be in a healthy relationship, because that's what we want, right? A healthy
Mhm.
relationship. We don't want to go through a toxic relationship anymore because we've already been there. We've already been there. We've already seen that movie. See how it ends. Doesn't end good. Um, so I tell anybody that's out there that's dating, that's been abused, there's happiness out there for you, but finding happiness for yourself too is key also. So find happiness with yourself. Heal from whatever bruises or or trauma that you've been through in that domestic violence relation. Find that person that you are outside of this. Find that person because knowing who you are is also knowing the person that you're going to date. Because what I thought that I liked, what I thought that I was attracted to from domestic violence point of view, is definitely not going to be who I'm attracted to outside of that relationship. And so many people fall back into that because that feels familiar to them.
Yeah.
It feels familiar to them. Oh, this person is this way. Oh, this person is that way. I like them. Da, 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 da. And they're really dating the same person, a variation of that same person that they've gotten out of a relationship with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna change the subject just a little bit. So I wanted the viewers to hear Sheila's story, um, because Sheila has something exciting that she want to announce. Doing what we do, um, and advocating and actually helping people, it's a cost to it. And if you know me, you know that I try to help and do whatever I can. But at the end of the day, we don't want to be turning survivors around. We want to be able to help them and provide the services. If you go to our website, you'll see major services that will, we've put it out there, but they won't actually launch until April. But Sheila, I want you to, so I want you guys to hear her story because during the time that she's fundraising, she's also going to be doing a documentary as well. So I want her to discuss, and she's going to tell you guys all about the Glam Bus and how funds will be raised for S.W.A.T. so we can help as many people as we can. So it's on you now, Sheila.
So I'm going to be doing, so I'm writing a book, and I'm also going to be doing kind of a little journey of healing with another survivor, sister of mine, Alana Devlin. And she is an esthetician, and she has what she calls a I'm going to say it wrong, glambulance. And so we're going to take a trip, and it's going to be a healing journey, and we're going to do a documentary as we go. And we're taking a route, and we haven't got all our stops lined up yet. But as we go, we're going to make certain stops, and we're going to be doing stops along the way and talking with survivors and people about domestic violence as we go. And we're going to be raising money for S.W.A.T. and doing hugs for dollars and signing releases and talking with different survivors as we go and documenting this and putting this in a book. And even though the journey is only going to be like a 9-hour drive, we're going to make it take several days. And the whole way we're going to be raising money for S.W.A.T. as we go. And along the way, we're going to stop at some domestic violence shelters. And Alana is amazing, and she's beautiful, and I hope she's watching. And because she's an esthetician, we're hoping to do some makeovers for some domestic violence shelters as we go, and make this really a journey of healing. And when Alana and I get together, trust and believe, it's going to be interesting. So we're going to document it as we go, of course, on video. And she's already suggested that we have our own playlist of music. Trust me, we're going to. So we're going to, it's going to be fun. We're probably going to laugh a lot, cry a lot. There's going to be a lot of stories as we go. We're going to talk about both of our stories along the way. And it's actually to help me get my story out in a book, but it's also to raise money for S.W.A.T. And that's what we're going to be doing. But she actually has this ambulance she has all fixed up. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we're literally going to stop at all these different places and raise money for S.W.A.T. as we do it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, the hugs for money, but the route we're going to take, we don't have it all set down exactly the route we're going yet, but the whole trip from where we're going to end up at is in the cemetery. But it's only like a 9-hour drive, and we plan on taking about 3 to 4 days. So it's going to be interesting.
So on behalf of S.W.A.T., we want to say to both of you ladies, thank you so much, because you could have chose any other organization to donate to. As I stated before to the viewers or anybody watching, if you go to our website, you can always donate. Some people like Cash App. All that is scrolling below. Go to our website, subscribe. All of our upcoming events, anything that we do will be there. We will also go live with Sheila and Elena on when they're doing their route, so you guys can see where they are, what they're doing. Um, and we're gonna have some things set up. But again, to everybody who viewed tonight, I want to say so much. Thank you. Thank you for taking an hour out of your time to listen to us bring awareness on domestic violence. I'm a true believer of education, prevention, and awareness. Um, I wasn't as upbeat as I normally am, but I pushed through. And I pushed through because of my passion to educate anybody and everybody that I can. Um, I'm going to let Sheila and Dwayne give you closing remarks of what to do if you're in an abusive relationship. Um, and for me, I will say to you, leaving is not always as easy. A lot of times we get the question, why didn't you just leave? Or why didn't she just leave? Or he should have just left. It's not that easy. There are protective measures that you need to take when leaving. But because my voice is not working with me, I'm gonna let Sheila and Dwayne tell you of some of the things that you can do. If you're not sure, you can always go to our website and reach out to any of us. But I'm gonna let Sheila and Dwayne take it from here.
I'll go and I'll let Sheila have the last remarks.
Oh,
There's always there's always an uneasy process as far as leaving. Um, there's a lot of things to consider when you're leaving, especially if you have children. You want to consider their safety as well. You want to consider how safe they are. Um, you also want to consider how safe you're going to be and who you let know. Um, Stick with a good support group. First things and foremost, find a good support group. Reach out to people. You leaving isn't just you by yourself, because there are plenty of people that can help you, and you should let as many people as you know as you can know what your plans are. Because there's things that an abuser will do to get you to stay, or try to get you to come back. Um, a lot of financial abuse, which is one of the things that we talk about in domestic violence. That financial abuse goes as far as, you know, ruining your credit, running bills in your name so you're not able to get, good housing. Housing is also, homelessness and housing is also one of the things that go into with domestic violence, because a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of people won't leave because they're afraid of being homeless. They don't want to go to a shelter, and there aren't a lot of shelters that have beds that's available. There aren't. You would think as prevalent as domestic violence is, that there would be more shelters that you could find for domestic violence, but they're not. There are not a lot of shelters for domestic violence, and if there are shelters for domestic violence, their beds are usually full too as well. So you're being turned away by the system itself, because there's no help for even though the system tells you that there's help for domestic violence, and there really isn't, as much as you think it is. So a good plan in place is always key as far as that. You know, you, saving money. Um, some people call it mad money, or having a rainy day fund. Um, and it starts with you can start with 1 penny, as little as 1 penny, saving your change from out your pocket, breaking a 20 and saving the change from that. Putting a plan in place that that whenever you do leave, that you close down all your social media, um, turn off your notifications, letting people know that you're not going to be on social media, or letting people know that where your whereabouts are. That's not going to tell the abuser himself. And the real hard part is, actually, if you have kids, is that telling your kids that you can't be in contact with your parent that's been abusing you or been abusing me. Uh, that's the real hard part, because there's a socialization, and there's a socialization that an abuser will try to have and play, children against the parent that's trying to leave. So those things are key to the fact of when you want to leave and when you're trying to leave. Um, I would say to anybody that is looking to leave, seek out help. And like I said, Benita said, that we're here. Um, we're here to help. We help in so many different ways because we know that domestic violence and domestic abuse has so many levels to it. So whenever you're trying to leave, get a good support group. Let family and friends know that's not going to tell your abuser. And sometimes you may have to be isolated to yourself, where you just have to just up and leave. But a good plan in place, knowing where to go, knowing where to leave, and knowing where it's a safe place at. And some things you may have to leave behind. That includes family, friends, and including the job. You may have to leave your job, but just know a job is a job. It's not worth your life. It's not worth the life of your kids. It's not worth the life of your friends that may be trying to help you leave too. So those are things that you have to put into place. And I tell anybody that is trying to leave, reach out, get a good support group, um, and know where you can find help at.
Excuse me. And when you're getting ready to leave, I mean, things in your home outside of birth certificates, important documents, those things are just items. They're just possessions. They're not as important as your life. All those things can be rebuilt. I mean, I left with nothing. Those things are not that important. And a lot of times, I know it's hard to leave without your dog or your cat or your animals, and a lot of shelters won't let you bring them. And I know that's horrible. They're family members. Sometimes we have to make those difficult choices as well. If you can, make a plan for your animals. I had to leave without my dog. Make a choice, or make a plan for your animal if you have to, or your pet, because I know they're like family. Just make sure that you make a plan. Money, if you can, a get out quick plan. Hide some items somewhere. I hid a wallet. I hid a phone in a building, an outside building. It was a woodshed. Those type of things for emergency purposes. Yeah, if the animal's a license, that's a good idea. Make sure that if you do tell anyone you're leaving, you absolutely can trust them. Don't put it in social media, in your phone, in case your abuser has access or they can hack that account. You only want to do that face to face when no one's around. You have to be very, very, very sneaky when you're making your plan to exit. But absolutely, please get out. Don't stay. It's not worth it. I mean, if you have to leave when he's at work and only take what you can fit in your car, do it. Just make sure you get out. It's not worth it. And I promise you, as hard as it's going to be to leave, and it's not going to be easy to rebuild, it's worth it. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be that easy. But there are a lot of people out here that want to help you. So don't do it alone. Once you get out, reach out to organizations like S.W.A.T, all these nonprofits or other survivors. Reach out to them. We're all out here to help you. They're your best support network. You don't have to do it alone. There's a lot of people out here that want to help you. So just please get out. Please get out. There's life after domestic violence. And once you have freedom, it's amazing. I promise you. You can have a beautiful life again. Freedom is worth it. And you will be okay. You will be all right. Dwayne?
I want to thank everybody for listening today, and for everybody that chose to be here and chose to be educated by S.W.A.T and by Sheila. Thank you for telling your story. There's a lot more that you could tell. Time wise restraints that we have. there's a lot of things that we could tell you, as a nonprofit that we want to do, and what we have been doing. But like I said, what's really important is that anybody that's going through a domestic violence relationship or situation, know that it is going to escalate if you haven't been through the physical part and you're just on the manipulation or the mental abuse. It does escalate to the physical part. Who wants to stay around for that? Who wants to stay around for any of the abuse that goes on with it? I tell anybody that's out there that's listening that thinks they're in a toxic relationship, just know that your toxic relationship does escalates into physical abuse and more manipulation. Who wants to continue to be in that kind of cycle? Um, Anyone that's out there that's listening who doesn't think that it doesn't affect you if you're not in domestic violence. There are hundreds of thousands of children of domestic violence who've never been in a domestic violence relationship. There's hundreds of generational curses that we talk about, that we see in that's been uprooted in from domestic violence relationship. So does affect everybody that's out there that's listening. It's not just a problem between two partners. It's a community problem. It's a world problem. It's your state's problem. It's your government's problem. So we need to solve it. So the things that we need to do: talk about it, educate, and bring awareness.